Election 2015, people deserve tax cuts, Cameron says. David Cameron has said there is an economic, moral, and practical case for lower taxes as he set out his central election pledges on taxation. The Prime Minister said, under his plans, no one would pay tax on the first £12,500 of their income by 2020. In a speech in Hampshire, he said this would represent a country thoroughly in favour of work and effort. But the Lib Dems insist they have been the drivers of tax cuts since 2010 and had fought tooth and nail for them. The coalition has increased the point at which people start paying income tax, known as the annual personal allowance, from £6,475 in 2010 to 2011 to £10,500 in 2014 to 15, meaning that all those earning less than £100,000 now pay no tax on the first £10,500 of income. Both the Conservatives and Lib Dems have pledged to lift this threshold to £12,500 during the next Parliament, although the two parties are at odds over who has championed the policy, with both seeking to take the credit. Holiday or a meal? In the third of a series of speeches setting out the Conservatives' main electoral themes, the Prime Minister said his party is on the side of taxpayers, who he will acknowledge have endured a difficult time since the 2008 recession. Under Tory plans, he said no one on the minimum wage working 30 hours a week would pay income tax by 2020, effectively taking 1 million people out of tax completely. This is not just a vague promise, he said. We have a record. Changes to the personal allowance since 2010, he said, had delivered a £700 tax cut for 24 million people and 3 million people were no longer paying income tax as a result. David Cameron and Nick Clegg. The two leaders are at odds over who has championed tax cuts since 2010. Mr. Cameron also repeated the party's pledge, first made at its autumn conference, to help middle earners by raising the income threshold at which people start paying 40% tax from £41,900 at the moment to £50,000 by 2020. We make these commitments on the basis of the fact that we have turned round the economic performance of this country, he said. The Conservatives have said they can eliminate the structural deficit and return the UK's public finances to the black over the next 5 years without raising taxes. Lib Dem flagship. But Mr. Alexander, number 2 in the Treasury, said the Conservatives had dismissed income tax cuts as unaffordable during the last election and it was only the Lib Dems' persistence which had brought them about. Our Liberal Democrat flagship policy of dramatically increasing the amount that people can earn before they pay income tax amounts to the greatest revolution in the tax landscape for working people in living memory, he said. Nick Clegg and I have fought tooth and nail to keep the successive rises in the personal allowance on the table at every budget. Labour have accused the Conservatives of making £7 billion of unfunded tax promises and said their own plans to raise the top level of tax from 45p to 50p are part of a fairer approach to ensuring a budget surplus by 2020.